Do they just... Those are birds. When did they charge? Dead.
The Confederates who are attacking from the north on late part of July 1st are part of a division under Jubal Anderson Early, and they are opposing elements of von Steinwehr's division. Von Steinwehr Avenue in Gettysburg is named after him. Early's division historically consisted of about 5,600 men, but flanking the Union right, northeast of town on July 1st is going to be about half the division, about 2 brigades, roughly 3,000 men.
Dylan McNutt, stand up and wave, please.
What's the total number that were engaged in this fight?
At Coster Avenue, northeast of town, late on July 1st, we're probably talking a couple brigades, anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 Confederates. Union Brigade, about 2,000 men roughly outnumbered. Most of the Union Army at this point is already retreating, and the Union soldiers you see here basically have been sent from south of town, basically just to come out and cover the retreat of the rest of the Union Army. This is the far right of the Union line, north of town on July 1st, and consequently the far Confederate left, coming from the north. Normally a Confederate division ranged anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 men. Early's division is somewhat undersized here at Gettysburg. Confederate Corps, 3 corps on the Confederate side, about 20,000 men each. They are made up, each of the 3 Confederate Corps had 3 divisions of about 8,000 men each. And then each of the divisions is made up of 4 to 6 brigades of approximately 1,500 to 2,000 men. And they are made up of 4 to 6 regiments of approximately 350 to 500 men each. Union divisions tended to be a little bit smaller than Confederate divisions, so we might be talking about 5,000 men.
How long did the battle last?
This is a 3-day battle. First shot was fired at 7:30 in the morning of July 1st, and when we get to this point, at about 6 o'clock at night, the Union retreat started about 4, but it probably didn't end until about 6 o'clock in the evening, and of course it got dark then about 7:30 at different time standards than we do today. The second day's battle didn't really start until 4:30 in the afternoon, and actually went into the post-dark hours. There was some light fighting on East Cemetery Hill. On the third day, it started about 4:30 in the morning at Culp's Hill when the Confederates were attacked by Union troops, and the fighting over there in the morning of the 3rd alone lasted for 7 continuous hours. That was the longest battle of Gettysburg, and then of course it all ended with Pickett's charge. It started with a 2-hour cannon bombardment at 1 o'clock on July 3rd. Pickett's charge probably lasted about an hour, so the fight was pretty much over by 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, July 3rd.
And this particular battle for the Brickyard lasted?
The Union Army starts to retreat around 4 o'clock, and by the time the last Union soldiers are rallying on Cemetery Hill south of town, it's probably just about 6 o'clock or so, so a couple hours of fighting.
Let's go.
Well, now we start to see Union skirmishers heading out in front of their main line. A skirmish line is generally about 1/10 of your total force. It's spaced out pretty well, and basically your skirmish line is like a tripwire. It detects the approach of the enemy, when they're approaching, where they're approaching from, and the strength in which they're approaching. you tend to draw enemy fire with your skirmish line, and that gives you some indication of what size force is approaching and from where.
The modern day recce force.
Yes, sir. A little bit different weaponry. Now, this is the American Civil War, and weaponry is a little bit different than it was in the Revolution. You know, back in the Revolution, they're firing muzzle loaders, tend to be smooth bores. And a typical accurate range of a typical infantry foot soldier in the Revolution, only hitting an enemy about 50, 100 yards away. But most of these Civil War soldiers now have a new technology, rifling, spiral grooves that go down the length of the barrel. And it's the same way with the artillery, particularly the black guns. Spiral grooves go down the barrel, and as the cannon is fired, the projectile expands in the barrel, and the spiral grooves impart a spin to the projectile. So it's just like a football. If you get a nice tight spiral on your football, it's going to go farther for you and more accurately. So with our typical Civil War infantryman, his accurate range of his rifle is now about 300 to 500 yards. He can fire out to about 800 yards, but accurately about 300 yards, 300 to 500 yards. So the weapons have become much more deadly. It's the same thing with the artillery. You may notice bronze guns on the field, the old smoothbores. They fire about a mile accurately, out to about a mile and a quarter. But the black rifle guns, made of wrought iron and cast iron, because of the rifling, can fire accurately about a mile and a half, out to 2 miles at extreme range. What that means is you're probably not going to hit what you're firing at beyond a mile and a half, but it's kind of neat to know you can fire at 2 miles in 1863. One thing you begin to notice, folks, as you see the smoke on the field, imagine all the guns and the musketry fire. Civil War combat is very confusing. There's a lot of noise on the field and a lot of smoke. That's why your flags, your battle flags, are so important. Normally positioned in the middle of your line. Through the smoke and the noise, you can always look to your flag, the middle of your line, for your direction. If you see that flag moving forward, you know to go forward. You see that flag start to fall back, you might want to think about falling back. You might become a prisoner or worse. That's why the greatest honor in the Civil War was to capture an enemy flag. The greatest disgrace is to lose your flag. Most of the 73 medals of honor awarded at Gettysburg for valor were awarded for the capture of enemy flags, even if that meant simply coming off the field with a discarded flag. Guys won the Medal of Honor here at Gettysburg for that.
There were a lot of prisoners who were captured in this particular skirmish here.
Yes, that's a good point. Toward the end of the day, as the Union Army is retreating, remember, they're not just retreating from west of town, they're retreating from north of town. So Union soldiers are running into each other in the town of Gettysburg. They're running through alleys. They're running over people's gardens and over fences. As many as 4,000 Union soldiers were captured during the confusion of the retreat through town. If you were lucky enough to escape out the southern edge of town, that's where you start to see the slopes of Cemetery Hill. 4,000 French troops had been there, left early in the day, and the Union Army will find 40 cannons up on Cemetery Hill, and that's when they begin to rally. And you know, that was really the turning point in the battle. The Union Army had retreated to higher ground, and during the night of the 1st and morning of the 2nd, they got more reinforcements than the Confederates did, and the Union Army on day 2 and 3 had a shorter line to defend than the Confederates did. So this is a very important part of Gettysburg. You know, the Union Army lost about 20,000 guys, about 50% of the 20,000 guys as casualties. That's not killed, but killed, wounded, captured, or missing. But what it did is it bought time for the rest of the Union Army, the 5 remaining of the 7 corps, to move up from Maryland and occupy the strong high ground position shaped like a fishhook south of town. The next 2 days, the Confederates are attacking that position, and their inability to drive the Union Army off that position is what gives the Union the turning point victory in the Civil War here at Gettysburg. This holding action played a key role in Union Army being able to rally on Cemetery Hill, strong position south of town.
Good ground is high ground.
High ground is great because it gives you clear fields of fire and increases your elevation of your guns.